I've moved on to the next big light block cap to rebuild. I just unsoldered one of the resistors going to it, and I put my multimeter on it, and I am measuring more than twice the expected value. It should be 499K, and I've got over 1 mega ohm or 1024 kilo ohms, so that's got to be replaced, and I hope that's not indicative of the rest of these, because I do intend to fabricate some replica dog bone resistors like I did for my Philco 60, but that's a bit of work, so I can keep that to a minimum. For now, what I'm going to do is just tack a replacement resistor in place and rebuild these later on, because I just do not have any of the molding compound on hand that I would need to replicate these. I'm moving on now to one of these 0.25 microfarad capacitor blocks. Looks like we've got some hard cardboard material at either end and some crimped and then soldered metal around it. I guess I'll try prying up the tabs on one end and see if I can yank the insides out. I carefully bent the 4 little tabs back with some flat bladed pliers. Let's see if we can get this thing opened up. Okay, there's a little piece of cardboard. Alright, looks like we've got a nasty lump of tar in the center there. It's surrounded by some paper, so maybe it's not actually stuck. Oh yeah, looks like I might get lucky on this. I'll have to get out the heat gun. Oh, there's the other lead. I guess it broke off. That would have been going to that solder lump, I imagine. Well, that was surprisingly easy. Here's the new cap that will go in like so. Plenty of room in there. I'll need to pack that in with some wax or something so the cap doesn't vibrate. And then I guess I can just bend one lead around and solder it right up there like the other. And the other lead I'll need to attach an extension wire, and that will give me a chance to use some of this stuff, which is cloth covered wire but small diameter. Obviously it's a different color, but the material and the diameter very close to the original stuff. I decided what I'm going to do to secure this new cap inside the can is to kind of replicate the old structure. So I salvaged a piece of paper, and then I cut a small piece of wood to act as filler. Then I've got my new capacitor down here in the end, and I'm going to secure this and fill in the voids with some hot glue and use enough of it so that it fits tight inside the box. I got the capacitor packed inside, and I sealed it in with some black hot glue, soldered one of the leads right here, and here's the reproduction cloth wire coming out for the other lead. The original cardboard insulating cover thingy's in pretty good shape, so I'll use that. Goes in like so and remounts here. The reason I use the cardboard is, well, there's a bunch of tube pins below right there, so you want to keep that from shorting out. And there is another one up here. This has 2 inside. You can see how there's 2 holes coming out, as does this one, but in this one, of course, there's only 1 wire coming out, so I'll use exactly the same procedure on this guy. I reinstalled and wired back in this metal box cap, and now I'm moving on to the other, which has lost its label unfortunately, but I'm thinking that maybe I can reproduce this with the right part number and stick it on here. You can still see the traces of where it used to be. Something I found curious up here is that one of the wires snakes around and goes over to this point where 3 resistors come together. What I find curious is that this is just floating in space. Typically they would use a tie point, often an unused terminal on Bakelite block. See, some of these, like for instance on this guy, this center terminal doesn't actually go to anything. There's an internal capacitor going from here to here, but this is unused, so they use it as a tie point. This is a little unusual because it's not exactly the safest thing to have these parts floating. They did it again over here, but I'm pretty sure it is original. Oh, that's interesting. There's another reason why you wouldn't do this. Check this out. Probably from stress of this assembly vibrating. There's a whole bunch of parts globbed up here. Look what's happened. This end of the mica cap has broken away from the connection down here. I'm sure it used to be pushed down like this and soldered in place. That can't be good. These mica caps in general are kind of odd too. I guess it's just the early style, and that they have these tabs coming out the end with a lug with a center hole drilled out. But they don't make use of that hole. They just kind of have these floating in space. Here's one. So they got this terminal that could be screwed down to something, but instead there's a wire wrapped around it, and then it's just floating around here. It seemed like the most sound construction techniques, but hey, that's how they did it. And then here's some mica molds that I'm pretty darn sure are later replacements. And this is a later style where they actually have leads coming out, and then they wrap those around. Alright, so I need to finish getting this wire off, and then one up here, then I'll... Oh, how about that? There's the part number label. Let's see. I wonder if I could carefully pop it off of this side and put it on the other. I can't really flip this around and mount it the other way, because then the wires wouldn't reach. Or, well, I can certainly put this on my flatbed scanner and scan it and print out a new one and glue it on the other side. I guess that's the simplest approach, so I'll give that a shot. Main challenge here is to not break these tabs off. Luckily this metal bends fairly easily. Okay, let's see if it comes out as easily as the other one. Yeah, I think it will. Goes one of the leads. It's hung up a little bit on something. Bring this one tab out a little more. There we go. Get that wire off. Alright. Rebuild it just like the other one. Well, not quite like the other one, because of course there are 2 capacitors that need to go inside of this one. Having the capacitors side by side seemed like a little bit too tight of a fit, so I arranged them like this. Two soldered together on this side for the common ground, and then I put on extension wires on the other two leads with some heat shrink tubing, and I cut a scrap of wood as filler, and then I'll put the caps in here like so, and melt some hot black glue in there to hold everything together, and then slide it back inside the can. Alright, there's one more capacitor restuffed. I did scan this, and I have it saved on my computer. Once I get this mounted back in, I'll try to print out a label and stick it on here. Here's something a little different. I'd read about these, but never actually saw one before. Inside this Bakelite block, we had a capacitor. We also have this little package here, which I do believe contains a resistor of some sort. There's a little package of squiggled up wire, and this must be some type of resistance wire. And if I were to find the ends of this and measure it, it'll be a certain resistance. Let's see the schematic here. Of course, I'll just be replacing that with a modern metal film capacitor. I went online and literally Googled 4989R, which is what's marked on the side of this Bakelite block here, and I found out how it's wired up. So there's the 3 lugs on here. There's a 200 ohm resistor and the 0.09 microfarad cap. That's not a standard value, so I just went with a 0.1 microfarad cap. And for the 200 ohm resistor, I just put a couple hundred ohm resistors in series to make up 200 ohms.